Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co host, Kraig Bowers. We are here to preview Purdue versus UCLA, a game Purdue badly needs just to get some momentum back heading into March. It is an 8 o'clock Eastern Time tip on Fox, and that is on February 28th. Last game of February, last day of February. March is almost here, and we'll get into the breakdown of the UCLA and everything like that, but I think if we really wanted to, we could just come on here and just be like, Purdue just has to find a way to get a win, and that's probably a good enough preview because that's kind of just where they're at right now. Is just have to figure out a way to get a win.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's no other way to put it than this Purdue team is reeling a little bit right now, coming off a fourth straight loss, the last one to your rival in Bloomington. So something's got to turn right with this team. We've seen this team kind of have different little segments of the season or runs in the seasons where everything looks good and looks like this is a top flight team. And then we've seen runs during this season where it looked like there were some issues that were exposed, and you question maybe how far this team might be able to go in March, that type of thing. So I think it's a really important one. Throw the Big Ten championship race out the window because that's done at this point, but it's just really important for this team to finish with some momentum in the season as we look ahead to the NCAA tournament. So these last few games plus the Big Ten tournament are really, really important. And kind of a historic matchup here, given the connections between Purdue and UCLA. Obviously, John Wooden is the most famous UCLA coach, played at Purdue from 1928 to 1932, was a three-time All-American in his time at Purdue. Purdue and UCLA last played in 2000. So it's been almost a quarter of a century since they have played a home game, at least at Purdue, against each other. So I think there's a lot to this matchup that we would, if this was a different situation and Purdue had gone like even 2-2 in this last 4-game stretch, you're really talking about like just how fun this matchup is going to be because it's between UCLA and Purdue, and you have all these connections. And Braden Smith's on the verge of breaking the all-time career assist record for Purdue. But as it stands, the issue is just like Purdue's got to win a game. Like that's really all the focus is at this point in the season and going into this game.
Yeah, it just simply got to do it. I don't like UCLA is very beatable. I also think UCLA poses a lot of issues that Purdue has struggled with, especially recently. So, uh, by no means going to be an easy game. UCLA just plays close games basically every single game, um, and we'll see what happens with this one. But I would expect it to be no different.
Yeah, and to that point, UCLA comes in being 20-8, 11-6 in the conference, currently sitting at number 26 in the net and number 27 in KenPom. They are 7-7 in quad one games. They would be sitting a lot better going into the NCAA tournament if they didn't have that one pesky quad three loss that caught them and kind of hurt their resume a little bit. But they've had some good wins, twice against Oregon, Arizona, Wisconsin, Ohio State. And like I said, just that one bad loss, which was, I think was the quad three loss at Rutgers?
No, I
No,
assume it's home
Minnesota,
against Minnesota, right?
home against Minnesota, right? So Rutgers, okay. Yeah. Rutgers was probably a quad two win. Obviously the calling card with UCLA is their defense. And according to college basketball analytics, on the adjusted stats, they come into this game ranked number 1 in the country in terms of turnover percentage as a defense, a team defensively, just in terms of KenPom total defensive efficiency that comes in ranked number 15th. They're not going to just blow you away necessarily with anything offensively, and sometimes they can get pretty stagnant on that end. But this is an opposing force defensively. And when we talked about the Big Ten season at the beginning of the year, I remember you specifically, like when we got through non-con and we looked ahead to the Big Ten, about what teams could affect Braden Smith and affect our perimeter guards in general with their defense. One of the two teams that you really pointed out that concerned you that they might be able to really disrupt Purdue was UCLA. Tell us a little bit stylistically about what they do that can just cause that chaos that allows them to have the number 1 turnover percentage defense.
Yeah, I mean the defense is just it's fallen off a little bit, right? And since the non-con. Still very good, still very dangerous. Um, they pressure. They at this point now, we'll talk about Adaimara. He is their one like true big at 7'3". He's more of like a Matt Arms build, like 7'3", but really like scrawny and lanky. But besides that, their next biggest guy is 6'9". They're playing guys, you know, out of position, probably up like scooting up the position line one. And so what they do to make up for that is they apply pressure. They're going to pretty much high hedge pretty much everything. Mario won't necessarily always, and they will like if they know that the screen isn't going to actually do anything, then they won't high hedge and they'll just stay home. But like for all intents and purposes, they're going to high hedge every ball screen. They rotate a lot in terms of showing help at the paints, and they're another team that they limit shots at the rim just simply by having bodies in the correct spot at the same time. And then the thing that stands out is like they just have such quick hands, like pretty much across the board. And they're going to trap the post. They are going to be aggressive. And the only way I can describe this is like, and I know we're not super huge football guys, but in football, they're taught to like punch the ball, the defense to try to force a fumble.
Yeah.
When UCLA doubles or things like that, they aren't like walling up. They are punching the ball. Like they are going for it. They are trying to rip the ball free every single chance that they get. And I really just haven't seen anything like it of like, it is crazy. Like you hesitate for half a second and they'll get a hand on the ball. And they're going to try to get two hands on the ball and just rip it free. And they do it every single play. And it wears on you and it forces turnovers. And now they can get out and run. And they got a few guards with just really, really quick hands to kind of match. And, like the scheme itself isn't anything spectacular, but they rip at the ball.
Yeah, and to that point, you've got three different 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 guys on this team who average at least a steal a game, and a fifth who's almost there in Eric Daly, Sebastian Mack, Kobe Johnson, Sky Clark, and then Bilodeau, kind of being the de facto 5 for this team when Mara's not in there, is almost at a steal per game. So definitely a team that can disrupt and create turnovers, and Purdue's certainly going to have to make sure that they take care of the ball. And we'll get into a little bit more about the specific matchup later on. Offensively, just stylistically, what's this UCLA team do well? What do they like to do from a team level standpoint?
Yeah, they got a bunch of dudes that just can sort of create enough in the half court. They want to work a lot in the mid range, and they have one of the highest mid range rates in the entire country. They have one of the lowest rim rates in the entire country. Really, outside Mara, nobody is outside Mara and Mac, and we'll talk about them when we talk personnel. Nobody's awesome at getting to the rim, but they got dudes that can hit shots. They're a streaky team, I think. Like they're 90th from 3-point percentage. I haven't looked it up, but I wouldn't be shocked if they're a team similar-ish to Michigan, where it's like, yeah, they have some really, really good games. They have some really, really bad games. They can shoot themselves in or out of any game. Going to be a lot of pick and roll, but then they will post up a lot with Bilodeau, with Daly. Let them work from the high post. They're kind of just fine. Taking some tough shots. It's what they live in is taking tough twos. They aren't going to turn the ball over that much, and they're going to try to crash the offensive glass as much as possible. Haven't been elite at it, but at times it really can get stagnant. But they still have enough shot making that's like, even if they play a full game where it's just stagnant offense, they have enough shot making that it can keep them in game still.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up Mac and Mara because they both come off the bench. And as I was kind of going through what I've watched of this UCLA team throughout the season, and then looking through just statistically what these individual players like do on here, the two guys that scare me the most from an offensive standpoint for UCLA do come off the bench. So just an interesting thing. Obviously, Bilodeau is really good also. But let's dive into some of the players and kind of talk guard and wing room a little bit here to start out. You've got Dylan Andrews, a 6'2" junior, averaging 7.3 points a game, 3.2 assists, probably the highest level distributor on this team, shooting 33% from three. Sky Clark, who a lot of people should be familiar with because he started his career at Illinois, a really quick and shifty type of guard that can get downhill, but he's also shooting 39% from three this year, averaging 7.9 points a game and 2.6 assists. As mentioned before, 1.3 steals. And then Kobe Johnson, a 6'5" senior, an awesome defender on this team, averaging 1.8 steals per game, 8.4 points, 6 rebounds, and shooting 35% from three. I'll just let you kind of jump in and talk about those three in whichever way you want.
Yeah, start with Andrews, the lead point guard, in the midst of UCLA getting back on track, where they've won like 9 of their last 11, it looks like, roughly. It was very quick counting. He's been a big part of that, and he kind of did this last year where he really struggled for early in the season, and then he kind of flipped the switch, turned it around. Good distributor, streaky score just like the rest, where he's not hyper efficient, but a little bit shifty, can get downhill, can get to the mid range, but definitely a guy that can just kind of help set up the offense offensively. Defensively, probably the worst defender out of the guard group, but he's still, I think, a solid defender. Like, I don't think he's somebody you can necessarily just pick on. Yeah, just solid, just kind of setting the table for UCLA. Sky Clark's been honestly good. Like, he's just been good this year, shooting the ball really well. Defense has been really impressive, what he's been able to do, both on and off ball. He's just been good in that sense. I like that. I think he's found a role that's been good where he doesn't have to be super high usage, so he can just be efficient in what he does, and he's been good in that. Facilitate a bit, good defense, knock down shots. Like you said, get to the rim. He does have a little bit of juice to him in terms of getting downhill. And then Kobe Johnson, I haven't been able to talk about him, so we're, for anybody that listens to all these, I'm sorry if this is going to be a little bit of a ramble on Kobe Johnson, but Kobe Johnson is the best defender in the Big Ten. Like, just straight up the best defender in the Big Ten. He may not win Big Ten Defense Player of the Year, because I understand, like, it is a single season award. And if you wanted to argue, like, some other guys have better seasons, sure, fine. There is at least one play every single game that I watch UCLA where I'm just like, that Kobe Johnson makes defensively, that I'm just like, yeah, there's not another dude in the Big Ten that can make that play. You want to talk about quick hands? He has the quickest hands in the Big Ten, maybe in the country. He is 6'6". They play him at times at the 4. He can guard pretty much whoever you want. They basically just rely on him to cover up every single hole that they have defensively at 6'6", 200 pounds. Super quick, super athletic. Not super athletic, but like super just kind of like shifty. He's able to navigate screens. Awesome. Again, he is like, if he is reaching for the ball, like the TKR is the one that comes to my mind. Kobe Johnson will be the one probably doubling a lot. If TKR is not like strong with the ball, Kobe will rip him every single time. He is just that good of a defender. It has been unreal to watch. And he, like I said, he is asked to cover up basically every single UCLA defensive lapse of like, hey, we're out of rotation. Kobe Johnson's going to be the one that has to fix this. Hey, we're going to have to play small because we don't really have many bigs in general. Kobe Johnson, you're going to have to guard, a 6'11" post guy and be fine with it. Hey, we're going to need to put you in the weak side corner so that way you can be the one, tagging the role and working there. He can just do a bit of everything, and it's been unreal to watch. He's, besides Braden Smith, he's been my favorite player in the Big Ten to watch this year. So elite defensively. I will say they do ask him to gamble as well. And because he's so good at generating turnovers and steals, there are times that you can get him a little bit out of position. If you can survive that initial kind of first, attack, swipe, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it does lead to him being out of position, and so you can attack that way off of it, but he still does a good job usually of getting back. Offensively, he can do a little bit of everything. He's quietly a really, really good rebounder. He's probably their second best rebounder on the team. I don't know about terms of raw average, but just like watching, he just is an awesome rebounder. Um, can facilitate a little bit. Has shot the ball better from three, especially in conference play. And then he's a guy that's slithery, can get to the rim a bit, can get to the mid range a bit. So um, offensively, like he can do a little bit of everything. It's not like he's like a superstar, but defensively, he's unreal.
Yeah. And to the point in rebounding, he does lead this UCLA team in rebounding by over 1.5 rebounds per game to the next closest person. I believe that is the longest you have talked about an individual player in any of these preview shows. For those of you guys that watch us, you know Joe has a love of individual defenders and what they're able to do, so that makes complete sense. The two leading scorers on this team, as much as we just kind of talked about the guards and Kobe, the two leading scorers on this team are their two bigs. And Eric Daly, a 6'8" sophomore who transferred from Oklahoma State, averaging 11.6 points per game, shooting 38% from three. He will shoot more twos. He will post up a little bit. He averages close to 6 2-point attempts per game. And then Tyler Bilodeau, a 6'9" junior, averaging 13.9 points per game, is the leading scorer on this team. He's been shooting really well from three of lately. I think he's up to 44% on the season, only on a couple attempts a game, 3 attempts per game. But he's really started to shoot the ball well. He can do a little bit of everything from a scoring standpoint. I guess your thoughts on the two bigs and how Purdue kind of matches up with them.
Yeah, it's not an easy matchup because they both can just put the ball in the hoop. Simply put, that is what they are going to do. They both I don't think they're bad passers by any means. I also think they're solid enough defenders, but out of position a little bit. At least Bilodeau for sure in terms of having to guard fives, and I assume he'll be on TKR. They're going to double the post, but it'll be interesting to watch. But yeah, their main draw is what they bring offensively, and both can knock down threes. Both are really good from the mid range. Both can get to the rim. Like both are going to post up. It's a little bit similar in what they do. Daly's a little bit more mobile in terms of they'll run him off some pin downs and things like that. But he's been awesome. He's been shooting the ball not great in conference play, but at least from three. But still, like he is not somebody you want to let get cooking because he can go off. I mean, he just had 20 points against Ohio State, went 3 of 5 from three. Lefty just kind of can get to whatever shot he wants and isn't going to be affected too much by defense. And Bilodeau's the same way where he'll work from the high post a lot. He loves the little, like he'll get in the baseline like 15 feet, face up, 2 jabs, pull up, and just kind of rise up over. He loves facing up in the post and just kind of rising up over players or a little one dribble fadeaway type thing. He lives in the mid range, like just lives in the mid range, and he's been very good from it as well. And both these guys they just put the ball in the hoop. Like they're not explosive athletes, or Daly has some of that to him, but they're not like gonna dribble combo, pick and roll, get to the rim, but they can both run off some pin downs, can both post up and just get buckets that way.
Yeah. So solid starting five that all brings some different things, and I think some interesting matchups that we'll get into as we kind of wrap up the players. But this is a team that goes really, really deep. Similar when we talked to Michigan State. The preview show took a little longer because we actually had to talk about 10 guys because 10 guys mattered on that team. And we saw it in that game. And going to be similar in this game, but there's 3 that jump out to me right away. And like I said, coming into this, the couple of guys who really scared me offensively, especially in terms of what they might be able to do to Purdue, were 2 guys who do come off the bench. And one of those is Sebastian Mack, not a 3-point shooter, only shooting 29% on the year on relatively low volume, just doesn't take a lot of them, but really shifty, high energy, can get downhill and will just bully guys at times. And there's times you're like, where's he going? And then he just goes right through somebody. And for a team that struggled to protect at the rim, he's the guy on this team that I'm like, man, if he has one of those games where he gets it in his head, like I am getting downhill, he could be a problem come Friday night. Other two guys I want to mention real quick, Lazar Stefanovic shooting 36% from three, kind of known as a shooter, doesn't take a whole lot of 2-point attempts, has had some kind of periods of this season where he's not shot the ball well at all, and in some periods where he's shot it a little bit better. And really, I think one of the guys that helped kind of change the trajectory of this UCLA team, even though he doesn't play a ton of minutes, is Adai Mara at 7'3". Really, he kind of reminds me of like a Purdue big, right? Just a big guy that has, to me, he's got really soft hands. He's got soft touch. He hasn't maximized his offensive output yet, but you can see it. Like a couple of years when he's a junior or senior, he looks like a guy to me that could really fill it up because he's got that nice soft touch, averaging 5.9 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, 1.5 blocks. He brings rim protection to this UCLA team. He's averaging about 13 minutes a game, but it feels like that's crept up as the season has progressed. And I really just kind of throws a different dynamic in when they bring him in compared to what this team is with him off the floor.
Yeah, so I'll start with Mara. I can work reverse order. Mara, like you said, elite rim protector, really good rebounder too, and he has soft touch, and he loves in the post where he gets to this like reverse pivot where he like dribbles and then he has his pivot foot established, but then he takes it, like, say he's on the left block, right, and so he'll like fake baseline where his left foot comes over and his right foot's his pivot, and then he pivots back to his left, picks up his right foot and goes up, and it's not a travel as long as the right foot doesn't go back down. And just little things like that. He has just like good footwork, good touch. At times a little clumsy, I think, but like he's 7'3". Like it's just gonna happen for dudes that big. But yeah, elite rim protector, and is, like you said, I think has just kind of helped change the trajectory of this UCLA team and given them a legit, true rim protector on the floor, and another legit like post option that can get to the rim. Lazar Stefanovic, you nailed it, 3-point shooter. He'll get to the mid range too. Like if you run him off the line, he'll get to a 1-2 dribble pull up, and that's where most of his twos come from. I don't think he gets to the rim too much. Yeah, only 15 shots inside the paint on the entire season. So mid range, 3-point guy. Like if he's in, he's a guy I expect Lawyer to be on, and you just kind of have to know where he's at all times. And then Sebastian Mack, like you said, he's a bulldog. Like he just gets downhill. He gets to the paint pretty much at will. And even though he doesn't start, Mick Cronin has said it before, like he's their closer. He's the guy that like late game, Cronin was just like, yeah, like it's awesome to have a guy like Mack that I know I can just be like, here's the ball, go get us something. And that something is 95% of the time going to involve him getting 2 feet in the paint. He draws a lot of fouls, pretty good free throw shooter, not super efficient from 2 or 3, but like you said, this Purdue team hasn't necessarily been the gold standard for protecting the rim in the paints over the past few games. So he is somebody that definitely can take advantage. I'll shout out Trent Perry and William Kyle really quick. Trent Perry, freshman, if he's in, more of just a tough defender right now. I really like him long term. But right now, really more of just a tough defender than anything. And William Kyle, he will play some minutes. He's an undersized big, but can just jump out of the gym. Last season, he was was he at North Dakota, I think? South Dakota State. He was second in the country in dunks behind only Edey. Like the dude can just jump and he can defend the rim that way as well. Not a shooter at all, no real touch, but rim protector, dunk the ball. If he's in, that's what he does.
So as we kind of turn the page and look at what Purdue does matchup wise and what they need to do, as good as this UCLA defense is, are there areas that you see Purdue being able to exploit weaknesses or really have the advantage in just in terms of matchup type of situation to be able to take advantage and score some easy buckets?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can get TKR to work quickly in the post, I don't think that they have great post defenders. Even Mara, like Mara is very tall. Like he is just lanky and he is awesome.
You're not doing the he's just big thing, are you, Joe?
No. He's what I was saying is you can still move him, right? His defense comes from being tall, and he is so just lanky and can create havoc by just simply taking up a lot of space and using his arms well. But I think you can still move him a bit in the post one-on-one. Thing is UCLA is going to double. Purdue has to knock down threes this game. UCLA is one of the highest defensive three-point attempt rates in the country. They have the highest in Big Ten. Basically, almost 50% of team shots in conference play are coming from three, a little bit under that. You got to knock down threes. I really like, I know we're not talking about keys of the game, but keys to the offense, I'll say, take care of the ball, knock down open threes. Like if you do those two things, you can beat this UCLA defense because, right, they don't have true rim protectors besides Mara, so they have to live in rotations. They want to pressure, but if you can handle it and beat it, like some teams have been able to do, it puts UCLA in a really tough spot where they're playing from behind. So, right, Braden Smith has to take care of the ball. He has to find guys. Guys have to knock down open shots, and then TKR has to be strong in the post.
Yeah. And to that point, right, UCLA's 337th in terms of the percentage of threes that are taken relative to other field goal or all field goal attempts in a game. So Purdue's going to get some open looks or get looks from three, and they want to limit two. So I'm 100% with you. This Purdue team's got to knock down threes in this game. Luckily, it's in Mackey, but when they're there, they've got to certainly knock them down. On the defensive side of the ball, I guess what obviously we all have concerns about just paint protection, rim protection, that sort of thing. But what matchups, I guess, specifically do you see from the UCLA side that Purdue's got to do a good job on to disrupt them and slow them down?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Mac, like when he's in the game, just gotta be, somebody has to be able to guard him. I don't know if that's Colvin matching up with him and just trying to throw more size, right? Like maybe it's a CJ or Jakari, like maybe CJ or Jakari could as well. Because I guess CJ and Jakari are listed as like the same height and size as Mac, but like they just feel like they're built differently. Where Mac's just gets downhill. In terms of the starters, though, right? Like this UCLA team is built that they can have any guy be the leading scorer really for any given game. Right, like Clark can knock down some threes and get to the rim a bit. We talked about Bilodeau and Daly. I think I am a little concerned with Bilodeau and Daly because TKR has to guard one of them. And I don't even know which one he guards. Like I would guess Bilodeau, but I don't feel ultra confident. And probably Daly. He probably guards Daly, and Daly is somebody that can space out to the 3-point line. They're also, right, Purdue's defense, they want to double the post, but they do it by forcing baseline and forcing you kind of into the help. Bilodeau just won't care. Bilodeau will be like, cool, you're trying to force me like 5 feet towards this other guy. I'm just going to rise up over you. Like, I don't care. So that means you got to have high hands defensively. That's where, I think first probably makes more sense on Bilodeau and just using the length there. Let's see. This isn't a team that draws like an insane amount of fouls, but right, foul trouble is still going to be a thing. Like, I feel like in this preview we talked about a lot of the good, right? Because it's just naturally what you're going to do with a scouting report. It's not like this UCLA offense is like a world beater or anything like that. Like they take tough shots, and sometimes it's not like Purdue's defense might be able to be fine in this game simply because UCLA settles. And if UCLA settles, that's going to be good results for Purdue generally. Now UCLA, like I said, they can knock down these tough shots, and they have gone stretches where they just don't miss. But it's not like they're, generating insane looks at the rim or anything like that. And on the year, they're, I'm loading the stats back up right now. They're third lowest rim rate in the entire country. What that means is they basically take the fewest amount of shots in the country at the rim. So like force them into tough twos, Purdue. And if you can do that, you just live with the results. If it's one of those games that UCLA knocks down a bunch, then you just got to go knock down shots on the other end. But if it's a game where UCLA struggles, then, that's where Purdue can get maybe a little bit of a lead.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Like you said, it's this UCLA team is not necessarily dynamic offensively or anything like that. But the two bigs, do worry me a little bit just in terms of both of them being able to post up. It's not too many teams that we faced this year that have two, honestly, like serviceable bigs, and not too many teams we see that their two leading scorers are both. I mean, 6'8", right? It's not like we're talking about 7'2" guy or anything like that. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I think it's going to provide some issues that Purdue's going to have to defend well against, even though, again, this isn't just a super high energy offense. Then obviously Mac getting downhill and just guards in general, Mac, Clark, those guys, making sure we contain on the perimeter. Do you see any situation? We've seen Berg a couple of times. Berg just hasn't got quite as many minutes. There's kind of been some rumblings out there that he's maybe trying to nurse through something. And we've seen Berg in a couple of games with Mara at 7'3". When he comes in, if he gets a couple of buckets just with his size and length, do you see possible Berg minutes again?
I would expect it to get another shot. And right, like I know I tweeted out the IU game. I was like, hey, I don't hate Berg getting minutes here. When he matched up with Balo, now it didn't work, but I still stand by like my tweet of like, hey, I don't hate the thought. Like if you can steal, if Berg can give them even 5 to 6 just solid minutes against Mara, one, you're kind of canceling out his size a little bit, and two, it's 6 minutes that TKR or first can't pick up a foul, and especially in like the first half or early in the second half, that's important. Obviously, Berg's not like going to close the game or anything, but I would not be shocked again to see at least him given a chance. Now, if it's like last game, he'll get pulled after 2 minutes and not be put back in. But I don't hate him getting a chance against Mara.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all if Painter tries to steal some minutes, just bringing him in defensively when Mara is in the game. In all honesty, in Big Ten play, I think that's maybe Berg's most favorable matchup, where like in terms of what the big man does, that he might be able to come in and provide some good defensive minutes. Mara also only shoots 55% from the free throw line on the season. So if he does foul him, not necessarily a bad play. So if he picks up a couple quick ones, let it ride, let TKR not pick up a couple of fouls, and then shift that again. So I guess as we kind of transition here to wrap this up, what do you see personally as your keys of the game for Purdue offensively and defensively?
Take care of the ball. Like if you take care of the ball, this UCLA defense is beatable, but you got to take care of the ball. And I mean, I don't know, however many turnovers they had last game. It wasn't great. Like that 16 turnovers last game, 25% of possessions. Like I could almost just leave it at that. Take care of the ball. If you do that, you're going to get good shots. I guess the other caveat is like, hey, actually knock down the shots too. Like that would also be helpful. But take care of the ball, handle the pressure, be physical. Like then good things I think will happen offensively, and then defensively, I don't like phrasing it how I'm going to, because it's not that like Purdue isn't trying, but like at some point you just got to do it. Like it's been my theme for the past couple post games. It's just like at some point you just have to be physical defensively. At some point you just have to get back to forcing turnovers. At some point you just have to be in the right spots. And at some point your play has to reflect wanting to care, right? I no doubt in my mind that all these players care in immense amounts and want to win. So I'm not attacking that, but like I think in terms of translating to what it looks like on the floor, it just hasn't looked like the effort's been there. This isn't a UCLA team that is, besides really Mac and Mara, that will get to the rim in insane amounts. Be in front, stay physical, be in the correct rotations, force double, like just do what the defense did really well for 2 months. I don't think that defense is gone. I think it's just the energy hasn't been there the past 4 games. So just get back to that.
So I meant to bring this up in the post game show that, no, I didn't. I wasn't on the post game.
Yeah, you weren't
show.
there.
No. So Braden got asked a question about the defense. And is it I guess, like where the turnovers have gone. And he threw in there something kind of randomly and was like, well, some of it's scheme because we haven't been scheming the exact same way that we were during that stretch. Now, I don't know exactly what he means by that because they're still forcing baseline. They're still, helping on the big that's if it gets into the post, those types of things. I don't know if it's just like they're not digging as aggressively and going after the balls aggressively because they've been worried about foul trouble or what. Have you noticed anything that has looked different? Because that gets he almost said like we've got to get back to scheming like we did during that stretch.
That is interesting. I'm trying to pull up some stats really quick to see if my thought process is accurate or not. Yeah. Okay. So I think like the only thing that really pops in my head is that the 3-point attempt rate has gone down for Purdue's defense, and not that that in itself is a bad thing by any means, but what that means is you're not quite helping as much. And what comes to mind especially is like against pick and rolls, how many times did it, you know, over the past couple games, Michigan State especially, was they just get lobs to the rim, and it's because that low man, whoever's guarding the weak side corner, they're generally it just in general basketball, their job is to tag the roll and try to prevent that. And I just don't think they've been there. And I brought it up, I think 2 post games, I think the MSU one, where it was just like, I'm like pretty sure he's just out of position, but there is the chance that it's just scheme and you're just focused more on staying a little bit at home on like those types of plays, and turning it more into a 2-on-2 game. If that's the case, then that means first TKR have to be much better defensively in that drop cover, or TKR especially in that drop coverage. And so that's the big thing that pops in my head is just like there probably hasn't been as much help as recently, and the 3-point attempt rate kind of reflects that, where even if I don't know how fans felt about it, but when Purdue's defense was at their best, they were forcing teams to take a lot of threes, and they're still taking a good amount, but it was activity everywhere, flying around, rotating. Generally, that's going to lead to open threes, or not even open threes, but just 3-point attempts, and I think that's gone down just a bit.
Yeah, and the interesting thing to me about that is, after the Michigan State game, it's after the Michigan State game, Painter like basically just said, it might have been after the IU game. I don't remember. Either way, you could do it for either one of these games. Painter basically said, like, we quit following the scouting report because a couple of guys hit an open three.
That was IU.
And the scout says, like, don't worry about it. Just let him keep, like, you're supposed to be helping. Don't get out too far. Don't close out too far on that guy. If he wants to take it, they're not going to hit it consistently. You need to be helping. And that basically they broke down from their principles in that standpoint. So I'm going to go a little bit different direction with my keys of the game. And this is not coming in a vacuum. These are things that Painter has alluded to in post-game press conferences a couple of different times over this 4-game losing stretch. So my keys to the game, number one, is trust. And I'm going to say trust in a couple of different ways. One, trust of your big three, to trust everybody else around them to go ahead and make that right pass. This is a team that, like you said, they're going to bring help on TKR. We've seen a couple times in the last couple of games where that ball needed to come out, and it needed to come out quick. And there were open shooters if the ball did come out quick, but it didn't for whatever reason. I think some of that is trust, right? We've seen it a couple of other times where, Braden or Fletch maybe has just tried to do too much against these defenses, and that's led to some turnovers. And again, Painter's brought this up around both. So I'm going to go with trust. We have guys on this Purdue team in terms of CJ, Jakari, Miles, and Cam have started to knock down some shots. Those guys are fine. And getting the ball in an open spot, those guys can knock down shots. So that's my number one. I must say trust also with those other guys of trust your shot. Okay. When you get the ball on a kick out from TKR, when they help, don't hesitate. Trust your own ability to take that shot. And then the last thing I'm going to say from a key to the game is leadership. We've seen some former Purdue players post some stuff out there about like somebody stepping up and doing leader type things for this team. You had Zach Edey for the last 2 years, who was the unquestionable leader on this team. And when teams are going through a stretch like this, a 4-game type losing streak, somebody's got to emerge as that vocal leader. It's fine to be a on the court leader, like follow what I do from a workout, the way I play, that sort of thing. But somebody's got to step up and be the vocal leader here. We've seen Painter throughout this season talk at times about somebody needing to do that. I think all three of them are in a way, but I don't know that necessarily somebody really has just a hold of this team as that vocal leader when because we've seen in multiple games, right? When they hit adversity in a game, this team specifically has had a hard time just weathering that storm. So leadership and trust are my 2 keys to this game. We've got to see it.
And I think that's fair. Like, I think I said it on the top of the show. It's just like, we can talk through all the UCLA stuff that we want, but at some point it's just Purdue. It's on Purdue to perform and Purdue to just get a win, just get back on the board and calm things down, right? Because I think their final 3 games are all very winnable. I also don't think any of the 3 are gimme games, right? We'll talk about Rutgers on the preview after, I'm sure, Sunday or whatever. But like, yes, Purdue beat them. We know that Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey can go for 50, right? And so these are all 3 winnable games, but you do have to perform. And if and I don't want to get ahead of myself, if they can win all 3, which starts with getting a big home win against UCLA, they are then 22-9. They are 14-6. They're probably a 3 or a 4 seed. And there's probably still some questions, but they'll depend a little bit on how they look in these games. But then it's okay, right? In totality, the season is fine. It's from the start of the season, you would call it a successful season. Just if you're looking at the final numbers. Obviously, expectations changed throughout the season, and at one point they looked like the best team in the Big Ten. So based on that, it's not a successful season. But get this one, roll it into two to 3 games, and the talk and the chatter will at least quiet down for March. And at that point, you just gotta go win some games in March. And I still fully trust this team to be able to do that.
100%. I think another important note, just quick before we sign off here, is Purdue's coming into this game getting a little bit more rest. We've had this long run where it's felt like Purdue's playing on 3 days or 3 days after a game playing against a team that's on a 5 or a 6 day type of break. This time Purdue is getting a little bit of rest between the IU and UCLA game. And I think that's really, really important with this team right now at this point in the season. So, Joe, what time is the game? Where can people watch it?
It is an 8:00 Eastern time tip tomorrow or today, depending on when you are watching this. February 28th is the day of the game, 8:00 Eastern time on Fox. Wouldn't be shocked to see the trio that was, I think it was at Michigan State versus Michigan, of Raftery, Hummel, and Benetti. So I don't really listen to announcers. That is one trio I would actually listen to, though. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We will be live after the game, sometime shortly after the final buzzer, probably around 10:15, 10:30-ish Eastern time, just depending on some factors. So subscribe if you've made it this far and haven't liked or subscribed already. And if you turn on bell notifications, you'll just get notified as soon as we do go live. So then you don't have to worry about it. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Come join the live show after. Hopefully we'll be breaking down a Purdue win, but regardless, we will be breaking down the game. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you then.